Okay, everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of The Book Boat. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jocelyn.
Hi, everybody. I am Alejandra, and welcome back to another episode.
Yeah, so this was actually a very special episode for us. For those of you who actually watch our YouTube video, this is going to be with a whole group of other people from SJSU Learning Showcase. So it's super exciting for us to get to share this because we were just discussing right before this that we started the podcast to get out of presenting, and now here we are presenting. So it was just a very funny moment. So the way that our podcast got started was last year during when COVID first hit and the shelter in place happened. We still had to present our masters, and Jolynn, she gave us the option to let's do a podcast. If you don't want to present live, like you still have to present somehow. So we got to recording, and Alejandra and I loved it so much. And of course, our other group member, Sarah, she loved it, but she's like, unfortunately, like, I don't want to do it. She's a little bit shyer, and that's totally okay. So she's like, I give you guys the rights to go ahead and take this. So that's how the book boat got started. Yeah.
Yes. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I had to turn down this volume to do the recording. But yeah, we're taking classes at SJSU to get our credential and masters, and we ended up getting our master's project to be diverse literature because for one of our assignments we had to bring in diverse books, and we just so happened to be sitting near each other, and we were like, what? Like, I love that book. And she's like, yeah, me too. Like, and then it just turned into this thing that we're super passionate about, and we were like, let's do this. Like, this is something we love. We feel like it's really important for students to be able to see themselves in the books that are in their classrooms. So it kind of just became this passion project that we are really excited about. And we just really want to thank everyone at San Jose State, especially Brian, for always helping share our episodes and just spreading our podcast. We truly appreciate it.
Yes. And this podcast also was kind of a tool to for parents, for educators, for anybody to start using this literature, because there is this world of children's literature that you can bring up these topics that might be kind of hard to talk about sometimes. And so we do research, we look at books, we look at who's writing them. We have 3 questions that we always ask: who writes the book, who benefits from the stories, and who's missing from them. And that allows us to kind of build our podcast around it, so that if we are going to have these books in our classrooms, we want to make sure it's a well-rounded book and there's equal representation, and the people who are writing it are from the culture, so that nothing is misrepresented.
Yeah, exactly like Jocelyn was saying. And we kind of have different themes for each of the episodes. Oh no, sorry guys. My dog just came in. But we have different themes for each of the episodes. And one of our more popular themes was the name episode, where we kind of talked about the importance of names and just pronouncing names and making sure that we I don't know, I think as a substitute, a lot of the times it might have just been easy to like, oh, what might be a nickname, or, learning names can be tricky, but we want to honor students and just people and make sure that we are respecting them and their culture and the name that they have. So our names episode was a really important one, and it's one that we got a lot of feedback back from, and people were able to relate to it and make those connections. So since this episode is going to be a little bit shorter, we wanted to kind of continue on that theme. And the book that we picked that we're going to share is Your Name is a Song, and it is by Jamala Tompkins Bigelow, and it's illustrated by Luisa Uribe. And it's just a book that we both fell in love with. It is about a little girl who gets frustrated because her teacher and her classmates keep mispronouncing her beautiful name. So when her mom comes to pick her up, she says she doesn't want to go back. And I think that's a feeling that we have to really listen to. There's this little girl, she doesn't want to go back to school. She doesn't feel like she's being heard. And as they're walking home, her mom is telling her about how these names can sound. For example, in the book, she gives them like music lyrics, and they have this beautiful style in the way she's saying it. And there's actually a video of the author saying all the names in the book, which we loved, because obviously some of the names were a little bit trickier and we want to respect them. So we love that she put out this video so we can hear the names and we can learn how to say it for when we share it with our students. But we loved it because it talked about names that were African, that were Asian, that were Latin, that were Middle Eastern, and just how important and how beautiful these names sound.
Yes, and so just a little synopsis about the book. I know Alejandra just touched upon it. So this young girl, this little girl comes to her mom, and her mom goes about and starts saying how each name has this beautiful song. And so some of the things that I wrote down and we both loved is how she says that names come from the heart. And so one of the things that this girl was noticing is that her friends and her teacher were getting choked up on her name. And so her mom's like, well, it's because they're trying to speak it from here when names actually come from the heart, which is, I think, is a very touching point, because one is like, okay, being kind, but also at the same time, like everybody, the way like language is, like the way words are said, it's all different. And especially for different cultures, like palates develop differently when you're like forming language. And so it's just awesome that she was able to say that. And she goes back to school and her teacher again gets choked up on her name and she sings out her beautiful name. And she actually, at first the teacher is like, you can't sing your name, that's weird. And she's like, no, well, all names are songs. And then so she sings out the teacher's name as well. And so then the teacher goes ahead and sings out her name, and she's able to say it perfectly clear. And it starts a trend with everybody singing out her name as well. And so we just think that's a great way to get kids to respect names, because some names may be harder to pronounce. And I think that's a great way for parents, teachers, young children to know, listen to the child first and respect them and ask how their name is pronounced. And even the author in the video, she goes through the pronunciations. As she starts out the video and she said, this is how I pronounce them. If someone has the same spelling, they may pronounce them differently. And that's when you have to sit back and ask them, do you want your name pronounced, and making sure that you get it correctly. And so the fact that she even said that was just kind of awesome for the both of us, that she's like, just because I say it this way, it does not mean it's correct. Everybody has their own pronunciation.
Yeah, and I think when we watched that video, it really hit kind of close to me. Obviously, I don't think my name is really difficult, but I think growing up, a lot of people struggled with pronouncing my name, and I would kind of just be like, oh, it's just whatever, Alejandra, like it kind of didn't want to, as a little kid, you obviously don't want to always bring attention on yourself. So I would just kind of let people say it how they could. But now that I've gotten a lot older, when someone asks me how my name is or how to pronounce my name, I'll say my name is Alejandra. Obviously, I try to help them. If they can't, like, I'm also very understanding. But I think it's just also me honoring that, this is how my name is pronounced. And then this kind of leads us to when we're doing our episodes, we always end with a ending challenge and an ending question. So our ending challenge for this episode was, as educators, we kind of want, like I gave that example of my name, and it's something that I would share with my students just to kind of build that relationship as well. I'm also a bilingual teacher, so a lot of my students, speak Spanish. So they're able to relate to that, sometimes your name isn't always pronounced that way, but you can help somebody and you can show them or teach them and how to pronounce your name. So I think our challenge is, as educators, maybe learn a little history about your name. Like, what does it mean? Where did your name come from? And share that story with your students. And you're able to build this relationship where they're like, oh, my teacher has a first name too, maybe, if you want to share that first name, and, kind of build that little connection with them.
Yes, and even with building up on that, you can also have activities within the classroom that if you share your origins of your name, then have students look up their origins of their name. And you never know, like their name could be from another country and they never thought that. And just to see that joy of a child learning that, I think is amazing. Yes.
Oh, and sorry, before I forget, you reminded me, something that we love about books that we pick out is we always look at the back or sometimes the front, and an author will include things like, I don't know, like ways to help students or helps children. And in this book, she kind of gave a glossary of the names that were featured in the story. And she gave how to pronounce the name and what it could mean and like the origin. So it could be a really fun activity to do where you guys research these names, research the origins, research classmates' name, parents' name. It could be a really fun activity.
Yes. And does anybody have any questions for us before we end our podcast? It's okay if you totally don't. No, well, that's it. Oh,
I have a question about your podcast. How did you come up with the name Book Boat?
Oh, so you have to turn up your volume, Jocelyn.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
How did you come up with the name Book Boat?
That's actually a really funny one. So Alejandra, do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so when it came time to picking our master's topic, I was really unsure because there was a lot of things that I was really interested in. So I was hearing all these different topics that groups were talking about. Funny enough, one of our cohort members, David, is here, and I was going to be in his group. But then I heard about these diverse books. So I was like, I'm really sorry, David, but I'm going to have to jump ship. So at first, we were going to be called, I think, the Book Ship. But I think that the name was taken on some platforms. So we were trying to brainstorm and we decided with a book boat. And we also really love the idea that, you know, books are like a tool for you to kind of see the world, as in boats are a way for you to travel the world. And just kind of bouncing ideas off of that. We wanted it to be obviously something that was kind of catchy and easy, and it kind of made sense. And I don't know, it just rolls off the tongue for us now.
Yeah, and we love it. I mean, even our logo has a cute little, it has us on a little book boat. So it's just something that we absolutely enjoy. Yeah, it's a cute name.
Well, that's fantastic. It made me think of, in research literature and international education and literacy, there's a term that's somewhat similar. It's kind of the reverse in some ways, called book floods. And book floods are when you put into a community all kinds of literature that's in home languages and that is written by and represents the community and the individuals within the communities. And it's been found to be the most impactful intervention in supporting literacy and educational opportunity. And it's grounded in the same kinds of questions and assumptions that or priorities that your work is. So the idea of that nautical theme apparently has some correlation there. I really appreciate the work you're doing, and I'm so thrilled that you're continuing it even beyond your master's project.
Yeah, thank you. It's definitely something that when we were doing our research, we noticed, and we saw that kids were really responding to books that had, you know, characters that look like them, or where they saw themselves, or learning about new cultures. So it's definitely something that we wanted to continue even after we finished the credential program.
Yes. Yeah, no, exactly what Alejandra.
Oh, Jocelyn, they can't hear you.
The whole Zoom technology thing sometimes gets me, and I talk about it all the time. Yes, but even Alejandra mentioned it when we were doing our project. We noticed that when we would read the books, the students' eyes would just like open, and it was like a whole new world for them of being like, wow, like this character is also an immigrant, and my parents immigrated here. And so that was very eye-opening for me, being like, well, my mom's not a USA citizen, and I wasn't a USA citizen at the time either. So then I was able to build even a stronger bond with my students who I was reading the books about. Yeah.
But I think we're gonna wrap up our episode. Sorry, Jocelyn, do you mind turning down your volume on the?
Yeah,
thank you. Sorry. So thank you everybody so much, especially San Jose State, obviously, for this opportunity, and for everyone on Zoom, or everyone listening, actually, if you would like to subscribe to our podcast, you can look us up, The Book Boat, and we are, I believe, on all major podcast platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify. Give us a rating, leave a review. Something that Jocelyn and I have really wanted to do with this project is to have a community. We, of course, don't want it to just be our voices. We want it to be a community, especially a community of educators, and finding ways to help students. So we always love when people leave a review or a comment, and follow our YouTube. We do record all of our podcast episodes and upload them. So if you look up The Book Boat, you will hopefully find us. Also follow our Instagram at _bookboat and like us on Facebook at The Book Boat. So thank you everybody so much for this amazing opportunity.
Yes, thank you. And if you ever want to come on our podcast, we are open to everybody joining.
Oh yes, we are very much we would love anybody to come and join us. We are actually having our first guest co-host on our next episode, so we're really excited about that. That we, yes, the door is open. Please, if you would like to be on it, or if you have any suggestions as well for books or topics.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.